think a lot of political observers know that Donald Trump has a lot of authoritarian tendencies. But recently, we're seeing this more troubling trend with him where he's now just openly wearing his authoritarianism on his sleeve. So he said this about the Mueller investigation via Twitter. As has been stated by numerous legal scholars, I have the absolute right to pardon myself. But why would I do that when I have done nothing wrong? In the meantime, the never-ending witch hunt led by 13 very angry and conflicted Democrats and others continues into the midterms. So, first and foremost, from a legal standpoint, that's still an open question. He doesn't know whether or not he has the authority to pardon himself, because no president has ever tried it. So to just assert unequivocally that he can pardon himself tells us that regardless if we know whether or not it's legal or not, he's going to do it anyway in the event he is indicted. Now, second of all, at least from a democratic standpoint, a president should absolutely never be able to pardon himself because you're elevating the president's status to an even higher level. You're literally placing him above the law at that point. I mean, it's bad enough that the United States' presidents can't be prosecuted under the International Criminal Court because no president, including Obama, mind you, has agreed to bind the U.S. to its jurisdiction. So presidents can commit crimes and see no international repercussions for their wrongdoing. But if we come to the conclusion now that presidents can pardon themselves, then we're allowing them to do literally anything with no international or domestic consequences. They'd have virtually unlimited power to do whatever they wanted. And that's not democracy, that's tyranny. But the fact that he just declared that he has this power to pardon himself is really troubling. Again, it's an open legal question. I would argue that he does not have the power to pardon himself, because a president is a citizen just like everyone else. But if he has the power to pardon himself, then he is superior to citizens. That's essentially what you're saying and allowing him this power. Now, the fact that he's even thinking about pardoning himself in the first place, I think that's pretty suspicious. Why would you even be thinking about this if you were innocent? This isn't how an innocent person would react. And I'm not saying I'm convinced that Mueller will find evidence that he colluded with Russia or committed treason or anything like that. But I mean, since the scope of Mueller's investigation expanded to look into Donald Trump's business dealings, well, now I think there's probably a pretty good chance that Mueller will find evidence that one of Trump's business dealings with foreign oligarchs, Russian or otherwise, may be illegal or pose a conflict of interest of some sort. And let's be real. Donald Trump almost certainly obstructed justice by firing James Comey. James Comey was investigating him. He then fired James Comey. If that's not an obstruction of justice, then I don't know what is. Furthermore, Donald Trump was in violation of the emoluments clause on day one when he was sworn in because he refused to place his businesses in a blind trust, which obviously sets up a gigantic conflict of interest. Now, Donald Trump will say, no, I did place them in a blind trust. I gave control of my businesses over to my sons. But the problem is that he's still able to regain control at any time during his presidency. If you place them in a blind trust, you are completely detached. He didn't do that. So he's in violation of the emoluments clause. And if you're a president who's violating the Constitution, that's an impeachable offense. But the thing is that Donald Trump supporters don't give a shit at all. They don't care. Let's say hypothetically that President Obama was being investigated and said that he had the power to pardon himself. Do you think that Donald Trump's right-wing supporters wouldn't have anything to say about this? Do you think they'd have the same response as if Donald Trump said it? Of course they wouldn't. They would lose their shit. When President Obama was in Nigeria, I believe, and he made this quick comment about how if he were able to run for a third term, he would win, they started speculating about how Obama might cancel the election. I mean, but when Donald Trump says that he literally has the power to pardon himself, we hear crickets from Donald Trump supporters. No objectivity whatsoever. It's just a cult. Whatever Daddy Trump says, it's gospel to us. And let's extend this further. Imagine if Hillary Clinton were president and she said that she had the power to pardon herself. they would lose their minds. And a lot of conservatives, I think justifiably so, were angry that James Comey didn't recommend that the Justice Department indict her when she used a non-secure email server. And they were right, because there were other individuals like Brian Nishimura that did the same thing and were prosecuted for it. So if we prosecute the peasants for a certain crime, we have to hold the powerful and elites to that same standard. They agreed with that sentiment back then, but now, with Donald Trump essentially saying, yes, we live in a two-tier justice system where the rich and the powerful can do whatever they want, and I can even pardon myself, conservatives have absolutely nothing to say about that. They don't care how authoritarian Donald Trump gets. Anything he says is gospel. These people are in a cult. They don't care about Donald Trump's policies. They just like what he has to say because it comes from his mouth. But I'll tell you this, if you care about democracy, you should unequivocally denounce Donald Trump's assertion that he can pardon himself, because that is not something that bodes well for the health and safety of democracy, because you are setting yourself up for authoritarianism. I mean, it's already bad enough that we've been sliding into authoritarianism, or at a minimum, our democracy has been decaying due to money and politics turning our society into an oligarchy. But now if you're saying that the president has the power to pardon himself, I mean, you're relinquishing all power that the people have when it comes to holding elected officials accountable. So no, he shouldn't have the power to pardon himself. And if you're honest in saying that you care about America and American democracy, you would call Donald Trump out regardless if you support him or not. But again, these aren't honest actors. They're in a cult, and they don't realize it. They think they've been red-pilled. It's a fucking joke.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.